Hello, I'm Larry Coburn, and I'd like to talk with you today about visual leadership. And I just want to share some things, some examples of visual leadership and how it can lead to engaging the other senses as well, sight and hearing and touching, and all work together to help us as leaders advance the mission that we're after in our organizations. So what I want to talk about really grows out of a concept that's rooted in lean manufacturing. That's called the visual factory. In lean manufacturing and in manufacturing in general, we promote something called this visual factory pyramid. At the base of the pyramid is a concept called workplace organization and standardization, and we have some little tips and tricks and processes that promote the idea of a neat, clean, and organized workplace. So there's a place for everything and everything is in its place. And if you ever enter a manufacturing facility, if that's your organization, you probably understand why that's important. That affects so many things. But one of the things that I want to talk about is how we build on that organization. That neatness and that organized environment now allows us to see. Then we can put displays into that organization that help share information. And the more people know, the more they can get on board and collaborate. And then finally, the highest level that we strive for is something called visual control, or error proofing is the concept. And error proofing is hard to do, but it often involves kind of what things look like and how we see them. So for example, you just think about on your computer, you have these cords. All these different ends are shaped differently. A lot of times they have little symbols on them and so forth that guide us to make sure we're plugging them in the right place. And it's pretty hard these days to plug the wrong cable into the wrong place on your computer. So that's an example of a type of error proofing. We'd like to put that into all of our work if possible. So springing off of that is this notion of the concept of visual management, that no matter what my operation is, no matter what my organization's mission is, no matter what type of organization it is, I would like to be able to understand the status quickly, like at the speed of light by seeing it. Then I would be able to know, okay, we're okay or not okay. How many times have you as a leader needed to test the water, take the temperature, ask people, how are we doing? And people have to give you a response. They may say, fine, we're doing fine. That's usually a clue they may not be doing fine, but they just don't want to talk to you. I don't know. But if we can make the status visible, then everyone can see it the same way. And then that visual can prompt action, problem solving, or correcting things, or giving people help. And again, the idea of visual management is to see, hear, and touch, use the multiple senses. The way this works in non-manufacturing most commonly is through this idea of visual stories. We create stories around our strategies. We tell stories about how we're playing those strategies out. What are we actually doing? What are the projects? What are the activities? What are the results that stem from that strategy? This is an example of a church. And this particular church is in Singapore. It's a tropical climate. They have 2 services a day. So people come for the early service and they go up to the sanctuary. They come out about the time people start arriving for the second service, but there's about 45-minute overlap where people, before the second service starts, where people are milling around. They've either just been in the service or they're just coming to the service, and they're in this big square, and all around this square are walls that tell that year's theme. In this case, it was communion, community, and commission. And then each of their different ministry areas and groups within the church have a space where they've got pictures, calendars, plans, activities, assignments, all kinds of things on the wall. And people are usually involved in more than one of these groups, and so there's a lot of milling around, there's a lot of laughing. People are bringing pictures from their event that week, their activity, they're taking down the pictures from maybe the week before. They're always adjusting their group's space on the wall. And all you have to do is walk around and see all those spaces on the wall to have a pretty good idea of what's going on in that church. Now, I don't know what it's like in your organization, but a lot of organizations I walk around in, it would take a long time for me to know as much as I can know about that church just from walking around and looking at the boards. So this concept of visual stories as leaders we can use to achieve focus. What are our critical few goals? So that people aren't all over the place and working on their own thing. They know what our goals are and they're in their face. They can remember them. They're interacting with them every day in a visual, hopefully tactile way. It's a way to gain alignment. How do we get all the players on the same page? And how do we make problems visible? This is not going the way we planned. This is getting ahead. This is getting behind, so that we can respond quickly to that as leaders and not spend a lot of time trying to just figure out what's okay and what's not okay. So this idea of constant reminders is kind of a biblical one. It goes all the way back to the flood, as near as I can understand. You may be acquainted with the explanation of why there are rainbows. But the quick story is God made the world, made people. People went along and sinned and got more and more and more evil. God decided, I'm going to wipe out the whole earth with a flood. He picked out Noah, had him build the ark, get the animals 2 by 2 in there so he can start over. So when they come out of the ark after everything else is destroyed, God says this interesting thing. He says, I'm going to promise never to do that again, because he wants to put Noah and his family at ease. Like, don't worry, I'm not going to do that again. Even if it starts raining, I'm not flooding the earth. But when the rains would come, then the rainbow, he said, I'll put my rainbow in the sky, and that'll be the sign of my covenant. And when I was a kid in Sunday school, I sort of learned that as that's so we can remember God's promise and we can feel at ease. And it does work that way. But if you read the actual text back in Genesis, and maybe you'll want to go look that up and do it, it actually says, God actually says, when I see the rainbow that he's put in the sky, I will remember, God will remember his covenant promise. And so my encouragement to you as a leader, if God needs a rainbow to remember what he's committed to, then why are we trying to do it without some kind of reminders? So there's a lot of distractions. Leaders have to give people attractions, things that attract them. And the principle really is what we see together, we can understand together, and then we can act on it together. And my simple example is, if we're in a room and someone says, what time is it? Everyone's looking at their iPhone or their wristwatch or whatever their device is, trying to figure it out. But if there's a clock on the wall and we want to know what time it is, we can simply look at the clock and we can know together that it is 12 after 11. We can know that together. We can understand time the same together. It may not be the exact right time per the whatever the Greenwich Mean Time clock is in the world, but this is the time as far as we're concerned, because it's the time on the clock that we can all see. We can understand together, and then we can take act. We say come back at 11:30. We can all come back at 11:30 based on that clock. The point is, good leaders use every opportunity to invite people to find their place in the story, just like the rainbow invites us to find our place in the story of faithfulness to God. So mission, really, for most of our organizations, that's the big story, right? This is what we're trying to do. This is our mission. Nike, our mission was to bring innovation and inspiration to every athlete in the world. And so we would be reminded of that a lot. And a lot of times we make those visual in our organizations. We print it on little cards that people put in their wallets. Kind of hard to see the card in my wallet, but at least it's a card in my wallet. But We also put them posters on the wall. But think about the rainbow. It comes out in unusual places. It breaks out every so often. It moves around. It looks different. Sometimes it's a whole rainbow. Sometimes it's a double rainbow. Things are always attracting our attention with a rainbow. Not so much with the posters that a lot of us use in our organizations. So we used a wall like this in an organization where I worked. We had our mission, of course, at the top, but we had working visual stories about each of our key strategies around safety, strategies around quality, strategies around delivery, strategies around training and people and cost, innovation. And so we had our key strategies, and the stories about them were the plans for the year, based on our thinking for the year. And then as we were going through the year, we would put the results. We would put a lot of our measurements. We would reflect on, okay, we did these activities. How did they work? Red, yellow, or green? And we would hold our weekly management meetings standing in front of this wall so that people could overhear us. People could see that we were putting the latest information there. And what we came to find out is that people were very interested in this wall. We put it across from the coffee and tea station. People would get their tea or their coffee, gravitate over to the wall, take a look at it. As they had ideas, they could quickly see if their ideas aligned with our strategies and our vision for what we were trying to do. And if they did, we put some little post-it papers and pens where people could write things and put it up there. And then we could follow up with those people and get their ideas. People would know if what they were thinking about aligned, okay, with where we were going or not. And that made it much faster for us to foster ideas and communication and get people aligned to going all pulling in the same direction in our organization. So the purpose of these visual leadership walls, if you will, are really three things. One is to make connections. So we want to align the detail work, the problem solving, to the organizational mission and vision. Why did we solve this problem? Well, this problem fits under one of our strategies. We would, in our management meetings, go through a lot of the problem solving that was going on in the operation. And if we couldn't align it to one of our strategies, then we had to ask the question, why did we spend resources on that problem? Then engagement. We use sight and sound and touch. We got people not only looking at those and hearing us talk about them, but also writing things and putting them on there. And then it became theirs, not just ours. And of course, quick response. Visuals make the okay and not okay status easy and fast so that we can respond to those things quickly. Communication between the leaders and the teams. If there were things not going well, people would put stickers all over that strategy story because they knew every Monday we were going to stand there and look at it. Even if they were having trouble getting our attention, they knew they could if they went to the wall and interacted. And so from there, I just encourage you to think about how you can use some kind of visual stories. How can you take your mission, your vision, your strategies, and those projects and make them visible and interactive in your organization so that people are drawn in to participate. They don't just hear about it at a meeting. They don't have to go pursue a binder somewhere to find out what it is we're all about. They don't have to pull cards out of their wallet. But every day they see it. Every day they look at it. They hear about it. Every day, hopefully, they have to write something or touch it, change it, and somehow update it somehow with what they're doing to contribute. That's visual leadership. Thank you.